You're listening to Season 3, Episode 8 of Vixen, a Black beauty and pop culture podcast. If you enjoy what you hear today, please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts. Today's episode follows Beverly Johnson, supermodel, author, businesswoman, and one of the first Black women to appear on the cover of Vogue. Now, let's start the show. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Vixen. Before we get in today's episode, I just want to say last episode, which was part 2 of the Instagram Baddie Effect series, was pre-recorded, so I didn't get to tell you guys. And thank you guys for attending the live I did for our March Vixen Book Club book, which was Fly Girl by Omar Tyree. Now, I didn't announce that I had a surprise for that live because I didn't want to get anybody's hopes up just in case something went wrong. But Omar Tyree came through the live. We heard a lot about his writing process. We heard a lot about the Fly Girl movie, what's going on with that. We heard a lot about the book. We just talked about the book. It was awesome, y'all. It went on for about 2 hours. It just was so much fun. Omar Tyree is super, super cool. So I want to say thank you to him for coming through and staying on so long and answering everybody's questions. I want to say thank you to everybody who attended. I had such a blast. That moment meant a lot to me because Omar Tyree is one of my favorite authors. So it just was so cool to be able to just chop it up with him and get, my listeners and, people in my book club to be able to do the same. And it was fun because we didn't only talk about Fly Girl. We also talked about, being a writer, what it's like going on a book tour, all the business that goes behind getting a book deal. It just was really, really cool. And if you missed it, I want you guys to know, if you go to my Instagram at the Vixen Memoirs, swipe over to the IGTV tab and you can see both lives, because we stayed on, we did one for an hour and then another one that almost lasted another hour, I believe. Both of them are saved down to the IGTV tab, so please watch if you feel inclined to. And if you have not joined the book club, you can go to the website, thevixenmemoirs.com, and sign up. I definitely want to start trying to bring through more authors of the books that we read if I can. So I'm just looking forward to that. And I just want to say thank you guys so much. I cried a little bit after because I was just so happy and just so pleased. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for supporting Vixen, whether it's the book club, the podcast, the Instagram, all three, whatever it is. Thank you so much. I get a little emotional over it, so I'm going to go ahead and get into this episode. But thank you guys. I had so much fun. So actually, before I get started, y'all, let me just say that Beverly's memoir, which was my main source for this episode, is absolutely excellent. I highly, highly suggest that y'all check it out. It's called The Face That Changed It All. I'm going to include some juicy stories into this episode from the book, but I'm trying to do it so that I don't give the book away just in case you guys want to read it. But I would say it's one of the stronger celebrity memoirs that I've read in the last few years. So I would say read it if you're interested in her life. She was really, really candid, really vulnerable, and I just appreciate a good memoir like that, because a lot of times with memoirs, people just try to only show the highlights, which, can work, but, you want to see the lows, the highs, and how they rose back up, and she did a really good job of that. So highly, highly suggested book. All right, so let's get into it. Beverly Johnson was born on October 13th, 1952 to Tim and Gloria Johnson in Buffalo, New York. Her mother was a surgical technician and her father was a steel machine operator. Beverly was the second of 5 kids, 3 girls, 2 boys. Growing up, she excelled in school and had dreams of becoming a lawyer. She also swam competitively and she almost qualified for the 1968 Olympics, y'all, so she was really, really good at swimming. In 1969, Beverly graduated from high school and began her degree in criminal justice at Northeastern University in Boston the next year, which she got to on a full scholarship. Beverly was super smart. She was that girl in school who, was just all about her grades, all about getting into college. And she was attractive, and so were her siblings, but she really didn't rely on being attractive or being beautiful. I had no idea that she went to Northeastern. In the spring of her junior year, Beverly was looking for a job to keep her busy during the break. Her friends at Northeastern suggested that she look into modeling. Beverly was reluctant and ended up getting a job at a retail boutique in Boston. And it was like a high-end store, kind of like a luxury consignment store. The boss at this store, Mimi, was very, very well connected in fashion. And she tells Beverly, like, look, if you ever want to get into modeling, I have someone you need to get in touch with. This was the motivation Beverly needed. I think she thought her friends were just hyping it, just like, oh, you should be a model, but to be recommended to model by someone who was actually in the industry, it made her feel like, okay, this is something that I can do. In the summer of 1971, Beverly and her mom, Gloria, headed down to New York City from Buffalo to meet with Mimi's friend, Corby Pleasant, who was the owner of the store Jack's Fifth Avenue. I don't believe this store still exists anymore. I tried to look it up, but if you're familiar with like 70s, 80s high society New York, like CZ Guest and Babe Paley, like that's the kind of clientele that frequented this store. She also dressed Lena Horne and Jackie Kennedy as well. Corby set Beverly up with an interview at Glamour magazine, and the rest was just pretty much history. She was hired on the spot to model in their upcoming shoot, and she started working immediately from there. So if you guys are familiar with just the modeling industry, the supermodel industry, like back in the day, things are different now. We talked about this a little bit last week, like how social media really, really gets you in the door. But back then, it was just like you were just discovered and then you were catapulted into fame. So that's basically what happened to Beverly. Beverly was the cover girl of the March 1971 issue of Glamour, making her one of the first African-American women to be on the cover of a major magazine. That cover set records for its sales and continued to be in circulation way after that. She appeared on the cover again next year and then 5 more times after that. So after the success with the March cover, Beverly decided to leave Northeastern to focus strictly on her budding career. So as you can see, 1971 is a really crazy year for Beverly. It's the year that changed her life, basically. But with all her success, a story as old as time, she gets caught up with, for lack of a better phrase, a bum. A fine bum. Apparently he was very fine, but he was a bum. She ends up marrying this guy named Billy Potter that she had dated briefly in 1971. I'm not going to spend too much time on their relationship, but Billy was a part-time weed dealer. He was like a smooth talker, basically like a guy that really didn't have anything going on. He was the first guy that Beverly met in New York, and like I said, he was fine, so they just kind of had that connection. And if you guys live in New York, have lived in New York, or know people who live there, it's the classic like girl relocates to New York thing. Some dude moves in with them like quickly. It's funny because like this, I know this situation all too well. Like when I was reading it in her book, I was like, oh God, here we go. Very classic transplant thing. Like a lot of times if a girl kind of has her own thing going, she meets a guy instantly, that guy moves in and he's basically being taken care of by the girl. So I'm sure y'all know someone who's been through this. Like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just like, he had like a slight drug problem and he was a user. That's just pretty much what it was. But he wasn't really like horrible to her. But anyway, after a while, Beverly gets sick of their dynamic and the two of them divorce in 1974 after living separately for a while. I want to say they lived separately, it seemed like a year before they actually divorced. Back to Beverly's career. Beverly was 5'8", super pretty, killing the print modeling game, killing it. The industry started to refer to her as the girl next door, which kind of gave her this squeaky clean image that some of her peers didn't have. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I feel like I don't always associate Beverly with the top supermodels of that time, like Naomi and others. But I think that's because print was really her strong point. Very, very similar to the Tyra Banks effect, if you will. So if you guys are not familiar with Beverly's career, you can kind of like measure it towards Tyra. She probably was bigger than Tyra at some point, but they had like very similar careers, very much print model, but like still dabbled in runway. What do you guys think about this? I know she touches on this a little bit in her book and says runway was definitely not her thing, but I feel like that ended up working out for her because she was really dominating print. So she became insanely popular just from being so widely recognized. So as Beverly started to gain popularity, she started to hang out with a lot of designers and other models, namely Halston and Pat Cleveland. In Beverly's book, she talks about a dinner party at Halston's house where Pat Cleveland was also a guest. She describes Pat as walking around the party completely naked, showing off her fresh wax, which had been trimmed into a heart shape. Here's a long, I warned y'all, it's long, quote about the incident. Pat's exhibitionist ways turned what I hoped would be a fabulous night of fun into something rather uncomfortable for me. She was the only other Black woman in attendance, and now she had become the show for the evening. I suspect that Pat had done her homework and discovered that the easiest entree into that world was simply becoming the night's exotic entertainment. By that world, I mean the white, upper crust, very wealthy one that few Blacks ever got the chance to witness, much less enter. Performing for the crowd was Pat's hall pass through the front door, I suppose. It seemed to have unlocked many doors for her, but I guess my 21-year-old mind just didn't fully understand or appreciate Pat's thought process that night. In the wake of the civil rights movement, I felt obligated to those who had fought and died for my right to be treated equally. There were so many who had marched and sacrificed their lives so that I could have a place in the mainstream world of fashion and even attend that party that night. Maybe Pat felt the same way, but just had a very odd way of showing it. Juggling the knowledge of this country's volatile racial past while navigating the hippie movement of the 70s often put me at great odds not only with others in the industry, but with myself at times too. Whereas the 60s demanded a certain amount of social responsibility, the 70s was the complete opposite. Halston's designs and Pat's unabashed nature defined an era known for both its luxury and excess, and they were two vices that became far too comfortable for far too many of us. End quote. This story reminds me of Danielle Luna, who I did an episode on in season 1, I believe it is. So for those who listened to that episode, do you guys remember how Danielle kind of distanced herself from the civil rights movement, therefore distancing herself from Blackness? And for those who have not heard it, I suggest you listen to it. But Danielle was the first Black woman to appear in Vogue, although Beverly gets the credit for it. If you listen to the episode, it's explained a little bit more. They kind of both are the first Black woman technically, but if you listen to the episode, you'll understand. Danielle kind of rose to fame a few years before Beverly, and it was like in the heat of the 60s, so the civil rights movement was very, very strong. Danielle didn't really want to get involved with the civil rights movement, and she distanced herself from it in interviews. And she got a lot of shit for that, rightfully so. So Danielle didn't have a lot of support from the Black community because of that, and that is why I think she's forgotten a lot in conversations about Black supermodels. So it's ironic that just a few years later, Beverly is given a lot of shit for being very vocal about Black struggles. Isn't that something? So do you guys, I guess what I'm asking here, do you guys agree that it became okay to live outside of your Blackness and outside of Black struggles as we went into the 70s? I'm not too sure how I feel about that, but I do feel like the 70s were more luxurious and glamorous than the 60s, mainly because of cocaine coming into the fold, disco music, all of that. The 60s were more about free love and equality, and a lot of people were fighting for like some kind of right or some kind of issue. It feels like everybody in the 60s had some kind of cause that they were fighting for, while the 70s were more about luxury and gaudiness and just living it up and living life to the fullest. So I can kind of understand what Beverly meant, because I think after the deaths of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and then after the Vietnam War, people just wanted an escape from such, serious topics and tragic events. And I mean, people just became kind of gluttonous in the 70s. So I sort of understand that. But what do you guys think about that? Anyway, after the Glamour magazine success, Beverly was the first African American woman on Vogue for their August 1974 issue. That cover was so popular that Vogue had her back for their June 1975 American Woman issue. The following year, she was the first Black woman on the cover of Elle France, and that was their June 1975 issue, I believe. That year, she became one of the highest paid supermodels, making over $100,000 a year, which would be about $500,000 today. Throughout her career, she appeared on more than 500 magazine covers. Her success was a game changer for beauty standards, especially because she had the Black girl next door thing going on, like I said earlier. And after her success, nearly every major American fashion designer started hiring Black models. So I don't know about y'all, but quarantine has done a number on my skin. I'm trying to be outside this summer once I get this vaccine, so I want to be glowing, glistening, all of that. So I was lucky enough to get sent a package of products from Afoco Skin, and I've been using them for about a month now, and I absolutely love their stuff, y'all. So they sent me the Black Soap Foaming Face Wash, the Dream Serum, and I have their Jade Roller set. I have been loving this stuff, y'all. I wash my face with the face wash, I use the jade roller, and I use the dream serum after just to put some moisture back into my face. Love it. It is so nice, perfect for the summer. You know, in the spring and summer months, you don't want to be using products that are really heavy or strip your skin of a lot of moisture. You want to make sure your face feels nice and clean and then add that moisture back in. And these products are perfect. So not only are the products great, the packaging is beautiful, top tier, 10 out of 10. They have great shipping, great customer service, and it's black owned, y'all, and it's black woman owned. Y'all know how we feel about black women over here, so you know I was hyped to try their products. I want you guys to get a chance to try Afoco Skin as well, so I'm going to give you guys my discount code to get 10% off your purchase. The code is VIXEN10, that's VIXEN10. Go ahead and check out their lovely website, check out their Instagram, check out their reviews, and let them know that the Vixen Podcast sent you. Even though Beverly's presence in the industry made some changes, it wasn't enough to shield her from racism. One time, Beverly was doing a shoot in the pool of a 5-star hotel, and it was drained after she got out of it. Like I said earlier, she often got in trouble for speaking out about mistreatment. At the height of her career, she knew she was being paid less than her white peers, and sometimes she felt like she just had to deal with it, and then other times, she rose the issue. Also, she was often reprimanded for requesting black hairstylists and makeup artists for photo shoots. After the Vogue cover, Beverly did an interview where she was asked how it felt to be the top black model. She responded saying she was the top model, period. Okay, I know that's right, Beverly. This got her in a little bit of hot water with her peers, and here's a quote from the book about it. There would be plenty of backlash from that one comment. Some couldn't believe I would be so bold as to put myself on the same level as superstar white models like Chrissy Brinkley or Cheryl Tiegs, or worse yet, above them. I wouldn't feel the consequences of my success or that bold declaration until a few weeks later at fashion shoots with other white models. Models who had always been chatty and friendly with me previously now had very little to say. There was resentment and anger towards me where there hadn't been before. One friend suggested I recant my statement. I had no intention of doing that. I had said what I meant, and more important, what I had said was true. Boo-hoo if it made some people uncomfortable or angry. But I was hurt and surprised by a few of the women's responses to my success. It was just fine if I got a Glamour magazine cover here and there, but Vogue seemed to be considered above my pay grade. It wasn't as if I put myself on the cover of Vogue. The powers that be had made that decision. End quote. So after that, y'all might be wondering how other black models felt about Beverly, and I'll tell you about it. Naomi Sims was an absolute angel to her, very sweet, gave her good advice. Her and Iman had a very, very strange frenemy relationship for decades. Y'all have to just read the book. It was so confusing. It's like they would be super close and then they wouldn't speak. It just went back and forth between them. I'm not too sure about Naomi. She brings Naomi Campbell up, I think, twice in the book, but she just tells a funny story about Naomi and Robert De Niro that I want y'all to go read because period. And then Beverly and Grace Jones had a little run-in where I think Grace Jones literally pushed Beverly, but they eventually became friends. And then, Pat Cleveland absolutely despised Beverly's success, according to her, and she actually tried to make Beverly fall on the runway once. Fun fact, did you guys know that Beverly is really close to Deborah Gregory, the author of the Cheetah Girl series? I did not know that. Also, I did not know that Deborah was also a runway model like Beverly. I had no idea. I have to do an episode on her in the future. Love the Cheetah Girl series. So I read all of the books, so imagine my excitement when the first movie came out. I was obsessed. So yeah, we got to do an episode on Deborah Gregory. 1976, Beverly met producer Danny Sims through their mutual friends, a married couple. The wife in this couple went to the same hairstylist as Beverly, and she would always tell her, I know this great guy, I think you should meet. Around this time, Beverly was dating around, but she had just finished playing third wheel to Iman, yes, that Iman, and Iman's then husband, Spencer. So she decided she wanted to find something serious of her own. She wasn't in a rush, though, because she had just gotten out of a brief relationship with Arthur Ashe that did not really end well, but I'll let y'all read the book to find out about that. But she was curious. She had also dated Warren Beatty and Jack Nicholson briefly before this. So Beverly takes the wife up on her offer, and she goes to dinner at the couple's house where she's to meet this guy. So she is surprised that this guy is a 40-year-old man. Mind you, Beverly is 24, 25 at the time, but the two still end up dating. Now, I am so confused about this relationship. I am so confused about this marriage. I have no idea why these two people took each other by the hand, y'all, but it's really crazy. So in the book, it happens so fast. It's like she's being wooed by him and he's giving her all these expensive gifts, like really expensive diamonds, pearls, you name it. But still, something is very off about the whole situation. Like I said, gotta read the book to understand. She doesn't seem to be into him that much romantically, and he's a very sketchy acting dude, and later we find out why. But anyway, on May 8th, 1977, the two got married, and then they had their daughter Anansa in 1978. They divorced in 1979, so it's kind of like grand opening, grand closing, but a lot of stuff happens between this time. But I'm not going to go in depth of everything that happens, but we're going to get into a little bit because y'all got to know how sketchy this dude is. So you might be wondering who the hell this guy is and how he's buying all of these diamonds and all of this stuff. Okay, so Danny's biggest claim to fame was discovering Bob Marley, who he basically scammed and did bad business with. Beverly actually had to sit down with Bob Marley to get him to work with Danny again after Bob had found out that he was stealing all this money from him. So this is where the sketchiness comes in. It was an open secret that Danny had mob ties, right? And guess who his partner was on the label that he signed Bob Marley to? None other than Paul Castellano, the head of the Gambino crime family. Like, that is just insane. Like, so the whole situation about like the funneling money, like I think this was something that Bob Marley had an idea about, but wasn't really sure what was going on there. So he just was like, I got to get away from this dude. Rightfully so. Here's a quote from Danny that appeared in a 2012 interview with Independent. The Jamaica boys that would come to America and get in trouble, I was always the guy they called, Sims told me, discussing narcotics. I was able to reach out to the guys I was friendly with and keep the bad Americans away from them to let them do their stuff without bothering them. You mentioned my name in New York in the white or black community and people left you alone, end quote. So, y'all make of that what you will. I don't want to give away the book again, but throughout the marriage, he just did a lot of sketchy stuff. The mob ties was one of them. He actually assaulted Beverly's hairstylist and best friend. He stole money from Beverly. He actually was being followed around by the mob for cooperating and put, both Beverly and Anansa's life in danger. The list goes on, y'all. It's wild. That's not even the half. That's why it's crazy how short their marriage actually lasted, because a lot of stuff happens. But he was looked at as a career shaper in the industry, so almost like a creative director. Like, he helped people streamline their opportunities, gave them advice, hooked them up with different people. He was like a connector, one of those guys. He did help Beverly a bit other than just stealing from her. He was integral in the deal that brought Beverly from the legendary Ford modeling agency to elite model management. So she had already left Ford once and came back, but Danny had convinced her to leave again because she was trying to branch off into acting. So at this time, Beverly was trying to figure out how to diversify her income. And she was trying to figure out what else she could get into because she knew modeling wasn't going to last forever. So her and Danny had been talking about getting her into modeling. And then he was like, okay, you need to leave and go to Elite Model Management, which was started with John Casablancas. So this was a good idea. And Beverly was like, okay, I'm going to go over to Elite. But what she didn't know was that Danny had done a backdoor deal with John Casablancas to get paid from getting Beverly to leave Ford. So y'all know Ford is like the biggest modeling agency ever, right? And a lot of the top models, I think even still to this day, are signed to Ford, but definitely at this time. So Danny knew that if he could convince Beverly to leave, a lot of models would follow her because she was the top model at that time. I don't care what anybody else said. She was the girl. She was that girl, right? So everyone was going to follow her. He knew this, so he goes to John Casablancas and is like, listen, you're going to get so much money just off Beverly making the move. So they do their little backdoor deal, and he got paid for Beverly moving and everybody that followed her. Like, do you guys see how sketchy this guy is? Like, wow. But I mean, Danny didn't really do any good in her life other than like giving her beautiful daughter, and he helped her get into a movie called Ashanti, which was released in 1979. But that was pretty much it. I think he also helped her with her disco album, which was called Don't Lose the Feeling. It was also released in 1979. But that was pretty much it, y'all. Like I said, grand opening, grand closing. Read the book to get the full tea on their relationship. But yes, they divorced real quickly, and he did a lot of damage in a very short time. And their divorce was also held too. During their divorce proceedings, Beverly found out that Danny had been making a lot of money off of each modeling agency that she got through Elite. So y'all, not only had he done a backdoor deal based on everyone who signed after Beverly moved over, he also made money off of each modeling assignment that she got. Like, this is crazy. How does this even happen? But anyway, so once she found out that he was making money off of each assignment, she sued Elite, and that action blocked her from making money at the time because no other agency would work with Beverly Johnson at the time. Because she had a lawsuit with such a big agency, no other agency wanted to be involved with her. So it kind of ruined her career for a little while, to be frank. She couldn't work. She lost custody of Anansa to Danny for a while, and she dealt with the death of her boyfriend Johnny, who had helped her through the divorce and helped Anansa as well. So it was really, really devastating. And she was going through postpartum at the time. So it was just a very, very hard time for Beverly. She's at an extremely low point, and she was also doing a little bit of cocaine at the time, and I believe some other pills. So it just was a really difficult time. After the divorce was finalized, Beverly had started to try to get her acting career back on track. This was when The Cosby Show was at its absolute peak. It was the biggest show, the biggest show on television, most watched show on TV at the time. So Beverly was excited when she was asked by what she calls handlers of the show to audition for the part of Claire Huxtable's little sister. He invited her to the set, as in Cosby, to watch them do a taping twice, even asking her to bring Anansa the second time, which she did. Then, for their third meetup, he invited her to his house to do a reading for the part. Beverly's memoir discusses her encounter with Bill Cosby in detail. The year before the book came out, I believe the book came out in 2015, but the year before, 2014, Beverly wrote a really long article for Vanity Fair about it. And that was when it was kind of found out that it happened. So she'd never talked about this publicly until 2014. So basically she came over to talk about the role, and he drugged her. He didn't sexually assault her, but allegedly he attempted to do so by drugging. So Beverly said that he kept offering her a cappuccino from his machine, and she said she was really, really tired and had been having trouble sleeping, so she didn't want to drink a cappuccino before she went home because she was like, I want to be able to sleep tonight, so I'm good. But he's like, no, you gotta try this cappuccino. And then he's like, you've never had one like this, something like that. So eventually she's like, all right, okay, give me the damn cappuccino. So she drinks it, and then she felt her entire body go limp. Here's a quote from the book about it. All of a sudden, the impact of what was happening to me really set in, and I became enraged. I believed that Mr. Cosby had drugged me. Before I knew it, a profanity-laced tirade came out of my mouth. I called him motherfucker so many times he stepped back and glared at me as if I were losing my mind. End quote. So Bill got so angry about what she was saying to him that he hailed her a cab, and the two just never spoke again. After the book was released in 2015, Cosby filed a defamation lawsuit against Beverly, asking for unspecified damages. He also asked for an injunction that prevents her from repeating the claims, and he also requested that the story be removed from her memoir. He later dropped the lawsuit in 2016 because he had bigger fish to fry. So he dropped that lawsuit to focus on his other case, as his dumbass should have. And he just needed to focus on his criminal case. So he was like, which he lost. In 1986, Beverly started dating Mike Tyson, who was 15 years younger than her. They had a whirlwind romance, very, very similar to her marriage with Danny. But at first it wasn't public, even though it eventually did become public. Here's a quote from the chapter in the book about the relationship. Despite our connection, I wasn't exactly broadcasting our romantic involvement. This was nearly 30 years before Ashton and Demi and the whole cougar trend. There was nothing cute, sexy, or attractive about being a cougar in 1986, and I knew that all too well. In truth, I'm not certain there's anything cute about it today. given the result of those younger male, older female affairs. The couple actually ended up breaking up when Mike called Beverly to let her know that he was getting married to Robin Givens. I mean, but it wasn't like a dump, like I'm dumping you for somebody. It was like he wanted Beverly's approval to marry Robin. And there's also a very, very shady paragraph in the book about Robin Givens, but I digress. So, I mean, when I was reading that, I was like, ooh, creepy, you know, especially because he asked her for her blessing, kind of like a mother figure, which is just, you know, very odd. We know that Mike Tyson had a very, very troubled upbringing. I think he was like 21 at this time. So, and she was like, what, 35 or something? I don't know. It just was very weird, a very weird read. I don't like to read stuff like that about, you know, younger women, older men. And it also is kind of weird when it's on the other foot. But I mean, I don't know, y'all. What do y'all think about that? After this relationship, Beverly went on to date Benny Medina, and guess who else? Mr. Big. Y'all, yes. I did not know that Beverly and Chris Noth dated for 3 years from 1992 until 1995. There's actually a lot of photos of them together. I had no idea that those two dated. Very cute though. They seem like a good couple. Like they seem like two people who would date each other to me. I'm not really sure why, but when I saw that, I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. So we spoke a little bit about the racism that Beverly faced earlier, and she spoke candidly in the book about being snubbed by Anna Wintour at a Vogue party. She didn't give too much backstory, but her former publicist, James Hester, had an interview with Page Six last year, and this is the quote from that. He had to fight tooth and nail to get Johnson invited to the mag's 100th anniversary party in 1992. So he's saying that himself, that it was really hard to get her in the door. They really didn't want to invite her. He also talked about them like cutting her head off in a few photos, like, and just Anna Wintour just not wanting to speak to her and just ignored her. In the book, Beverly just says, you know, she kind of just snubbed me. She ignored me. Years later, after this incident, a statement Anna Wintour wrote, meant for the eyes of Vogue staff only, was leaked. And in it, she was admitting that the magazine had failed to elevate, and this is a quote, failed to elevate and give space to Black creatives and had made mistakes in publishing images or stories that have been hurtful or intolerant. After hearing about the incident, Beverly decided, okay, this is the last straw. She felt snubbed by them, especially as, you know, their first African-American woman on the cover, and like for them to not, you know, want to have to be forced to invite her to a party and then to snub her. She was like, I've had enough. In an op-ed piece written for the Washington Post in 2020, Beverly said, I propose the Beverly Johnson rule for Condé Nast, similar to the Rooney rule in the NFL that mandates that a diverse set of candidates must be interviewed for any open coaching and front office position. The Beverly Johnson rule would require at least 2 Black professionals to be meaningfully interviewed for influential positions. This rule would be especially relevant to boards of directors, C-suite executives, top editorial positions, and other influential roles. I also invite chief executives of companies in the fashion, beauty, and media industries to adopt this rule. 46 years after my Vogue cover, I want to move from being an icon to an iconoclast and continue fighting the racism and exclusion that have been an ugly part of the beauty business for far too long. End quote. So what do you guys think about this? I think that, you know, in fashion, a lot of the higher ups, a lot of the executives are white. Vogue is entirely way too white. Vogue is way too white. The other ones have been better, like Glamour and Elle, you know, have a lot more Black people, a lot more Black women, a lot more Black men involved in, you know, their C-suite positions. But Vogue definitely needs to be doing something. Like, I totally agree with the rule. I think fashion is ran by too many white people, even though it's pulsated by Black people. It's pulsated by streetwear. You know, it's constantly pulling references from Black people and streetwear and all of the urban things that we do. And then you get up to the top and there's no people that look like you. So it would be nice to see that. And, you know, 46 years after her cover, like she said, something just needs to be done about it. You know, it's like she said, it's an ugly part of fashion and it needs to change because of stuff like this. Pages like, Diet Prada. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that page. I'm sure you guys are. Of pages like Diet Prada on Instagram exist because of the kind of, you know, the lack of diversity in fashion. A lot of mistakes a lot of fashion mistakes and no-nos and offensive collections and all of that stuff would never have happened. It never, ever, ever would have gotten the green light if there were Black people in the room. That's how I feel. Because a lot of stuff, I'm like, how does this make it through from the drawing board through the entire team and be released? And it is because there are no Black people. Like, that is exactly why. So that's what I think about it. Nonetheless, today, Beverly is doing very, very well. She kept up her acting career and had roles in films and shows like How to Be a Player. Love her in that. Crossroads, Martin, Law and Order, The Parenthood, and a lot more. She also did a little reality TV. She was a judge on the series She's Got the Look, which I've never seen. Like, this sounds really interesting, but I don't remember this. But basically, it was a competition show where women over the age of 35 compete for a modeling contract and magazine spread. Basically, America's Next Top Model for, a more mature woman. She started the Beverly Johnson hair collection in 2007. Her wigs can be found at beauty supply stores worldwide. Yes, ma'am. The Beverly Johnson hair collection has the beauty supply on lock. I know y'all have seen them. She also did a little bit more reality TV in 2012 when she starred in her own show, Beverly's Full House, which came on OWN, where she spoke openly about her battles with anorexia and bulimia during her modeling days. She also speaks about that struggle a lot in the book as well. Beverly has also written 2 other books in addition to her memoir, which are called Beverly Johnson's Guide to a Life of Health and Beauty and True Beauty, Secrets of Radiant Beauty for Women of Every Age and Color. Her daughter, Anansa, has 4 beautiful children. So, Beverly has her grandkids. She's doing very well. And at the very, very young age of 68, her boyfriend of 8 years, investment banker Brian Malian, proposed. Yes, I know that's right, Beverly. You better still find love in your 60s going into your 70s. We love to see. I love when older women find love again, or find love for the first time. I just think it's so sweet and so special, so I loved reading that because her and her boyfriend, if y'all follow her on Instagram, they're very cute and just very loving. So it's nice that they're engaged. That is the Beverly Johnson story, y'all. What do you guys think? I think that Beverly, I have so much respect for her. One, how candid she was in her memoir about all of her struggles and what she's been through. I just found it super, super relatable. I also loved how, at a young age, she was like 25 and she was focusing on diversifying her income. And she was like, look, this is not going to last forever. Like, beauty fades, there's always a new face. There's always some girl, just like how she was, 19, fresh face that, gets catapulted into the industry. So she was like, I got to figure out how I'm going to have money forever. And she invested her money. She explored other fields with the acting, the books, the beauty business. Like, I just really, really admired that. And that's part of the reason why I highly suggest her book, y'all. Read it. It was so, so good. I read it super fast. And y'all know I read a new book every month for the book club. And I also read a lot for just these episodes, the podcast episodes. But I got through her book really, really fast. It was very interesting. So highly, highly recommend it. I know that this episode is a little bit on the shorter side, but I figured since the last 2 from the Instagram Baddie Effect series were so long, I figured I would do, a little palate cleanser, if you will, in between, because the season finale episode is also going to be very long. And then episode 9 is going to be a little short. So the one after this episode is also going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, 30 minutes or so, because the finale is going to be a long one. And I have a guest for the finale, I believe. Not sure, but I'm pretty sure I do. But yeah, so since we came off of 2 long episodes and we're going to have a long finale as we always do, I figured I would do 2 shorter episodes in between. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Be sure to follow on Instagram at the Vixen Memoirs. Call me, beat me if you want to reach me at VIXENPODCAST@gmail.com. And yeah, I will see you guys next week with an all new episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to Vixen. If you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a review. If you have a submission, feel free to email VIXENPODCAST@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with an all new episode.